This is you. You were born in a town so dead, even the tumbleweeds gave up and stopped rolling. Your father was the town blacksmith, a quiet man with iron hands and a gentle heart. Your mother used to play a silver harmonica by the window every night, filling the house with a melody so sweet it made the coyotes stop howling. One morning, when you're barely 5 years old, the sheriff rides up to your father's shop, not to get a horseshoe fixed, but to collect a debt your father doesn't owe. Your old man stands his ground. The sheriff doesn't argue. He simply draws his revolver and puts a bullet through your father's chest right in front of you. Your mother screams and runs. You never see her again. The only thing she leaves behind is the silver harmonica, still warm from her lips, lying on the dirt floor next to your father's blood. You grab it and run. You run until your legs buckle, until the town is nothing but a shimmer of heat behind you. From that day on, you are alone. A ghost child drifting through the desert, stealing bread from windowsills and sleeping in horse troughs. The harmonica never leaves your hand. You teach yourself to play it in the dark, each note a desperate prayer to a mother who vanished like smoke. You survive by becoming invisible. You learn which saloons throw out scraps at midnight, which ranchers leave their barns unlocked. One evening, you sneak into a wealthy rancher's estate just to hear his daughter practice piano through the open window. You sit in the bushes, eyes closed, the harmonica pressed to your lips, playing along in a whisper. For a few minutes, you are not an orphan. You are a musician. But the desert doesn't care about your dreams. One night, while you sleep in an abandoned mine shaft, rough hands grab you from the darkness. A burlap sack goes over your head, or a voice cold as rattlesnake venom tells you to stop struggling, or they'll gut you like a jackrabbit. You're thrown into the back of a wagon that smells of sweat and gunpowder. You tell them you're nobody, that no one on this earth would pay a single coin to get you back. They laugh. One of them says that's exactly why they picked you. Nobody comes looking for a kid that doesn't exist. Terror floods your veins, but your survival instinct kicks in hard. When the wagon stops near a creek, they shove you toward the bushes and tie your wrists to a fence post. They don't know that a drunk old prospector once taught you how to dislocate your thumb to slip out of any knot. You flex your wrist, feel the sickening pop, and slide free. You bolt into the darkness. They shout. They shoot. But you're small and fast, and the night swallows you whole. You're free, but then you freeze. The harmonica, it's still in the wagon. Any rational person would keep running. But you aren't rational. Without that harmonica, you are nothing but silence and dust. You circle back like a lunatic, crawling on your belly through the sagebrush. You reach the wagon, slip your good hand under the canvas, and feel the cold silver against your fingers. You clutch it to your chest and disappear into the desert night, proving to yourself that you'd rather die chasing a melody than live in silence. But fate isn't done torturing you. 2 days later, the same men find your trail. This time, there's no escape. They beat you until the desert sand beneath you turns dark red. The bigger one grabs your harmonica. He doesn't see an instrument. He sees a piece of metal. He smashes it against a rock, then hits you across the temple with it. The world goes white, then black. You wake up in a wooden stockade that smells of horse manure and dried blood. Your head is split with pain. When you try to remember your name, you find nothing. A terrifying void. The blow didn't just crack your skull, it erased your past. Around you, dozens of boys and young men sit in the dirt, hollow-eyed and silent. The gate crashes open. A man walks in, who looks like he was carved from the same rock as the canyon walls. A scar running from his left eye to his jaw, hands the size of dinner plates. He introduces himself as the Colonel. He tells you that you are no longer children. You are no longer human. You are recruits in an outlaw army, and you will learn to rob, to ride, and to kill. Or you will be buried in unmarked graves under the cactus. A kid with clean boots stands up and announces that his father is a territorial judge. The Colonel walks over without a word and delivers a single backhand, so devastating the kid crumples like a rag doll. He wipes his hand on his coat and says that out here, last names are worth less than vulture spit. Training begins at dawn. You run barefoot across rocky terrain until your feet bleed. You learn to shoot from horseback at full gallop. You learn to throw a knife so it buries to the hilt in a fence post from 20 paces. You learn to read tracks in the sand, to navigate by the stars, to survive on cactus water and rattlesnake meat. At night, you study maps of stagecoach routes, bank layouts, and the patrol patterns of every marshal in the territory. In this furnace of suffering, your bunkhouse becomes your sanctuary. 4 of you forge a bond tighter than blood. First, there's Coyote, a fast-talking orphan from the border towns with fingers quicker than a card shark's. He can pick any lock and talk his way out of a hangman's noose with a smile. Then there's Anvil, a silent giant with shoulders as wide as a doorframe, stepping in front of the colonel's whip to protect whoever is too broken to take another lash. And finally, Dust, a twitchy kid who never sleeps more than 20 minutes at a time because he's terrified of being killed in his dreams. His paranoia makes him the perfect lookout. Nothing moves within a mile of camp without Dust knowing about it. And you are Strings. The name starts as mockery because you clutch the mangled remains of your harmonica like a rosary, but your damaged brain gives you a strange gift. You forget pain almost instantly. They beat you, you bleed, you spit out a tooth, and 5 minutes later, you're grinning like a fool. That unbreakable smile becomes the team's heartbeat. Brotherhood is forged in misery. One night, under a sky so full of stars, it looks like God spilled a bag of silver. You slice your palms with a Bowie knife and press them together. You swear a blood oath. All of you get out alive, or none of you do. 6 months of brutal training end with a final test. The colonel rides you deep into a canyon system so vast it could swallow an army. He hands out rifles and crude maps. The rules are simple. 4 teams enter, 1 team leaves. Your team pushes into the narrows. At dusk, you spot Bunkhouse 6 camped near a waterhole. Through your rifle scope, you see the face of a boy who shared his last strip of dried beef with you a week ago. Your finger freezes on the trigger. Then, a distant gunshot echoes through the canyon. Bunkhouse 3 has started killing. Something inside you goes cold. The doubt evaporates. You whisper the order. 3 rifles fire simultaneously. The targets drop before the echoes fade. There's no glory, no rush, just the grim efficiency of a job done right. Over the next 12 hours, your team ambushes survivors with surgical patience. At dawn, you are the only one standing. The colonel rides out of the dust, surveys the fallen, and gives a single nod. He looks into your empty eyes and names you captain. He says a good outlaw isn't the one who loves killing, but the one who feels nothing when he does it. You turn away, and thanks to your damaged memory, the faces of the boys you just buried start to blur, leaving room only for the next mission. For the next 3 years, your life becomes a sequence of heists executed with clockwork precision. You are no longer desperate boys. You are a crew, where every member is a vital piece of the machine. The first big job is a stagecoach carrying a federal payroll through a mountain pass. You don't ride in screaming like dime novel bandits. Dust confirms the target from a ridge a quarter-mile away. Coyote, dressed as a traveling preacher, flags down the coach begging for water. He stumbles against the lead horse, stalling the team. You and Anvil emerge from the rocks. Anvil rips the strongbox off with his bare hands while you hold the guards at gunpoint. No shots fired. You vanish before the dust settles. The jobs get harder. A rival gang leader holed up in a fortified ranch with a dozen armed men. Coyote infiltrates disguised as a horse trader, spending 3 days mapping guard rotations. On the 3rd night, Dust stampedes the ranch's own cattle through the front gate. In the chaos, you and Anvil slip through a side window, press a chloroform rag over the boss's face, and drag him out the back. Clean, quiet, professional. Another job demands raw firepower. A rival outfit running stolen army rifles through a narrow canyon. Fallen trees block the trail. When the mule train stops, Anvil opens up from the high ground. You and Coyote flank from both sides. Dust picks off anyone who runs. It's over in 4 minutes. Your name spreads across the territory like wildfire. Wanted posters appear in every town, but they can't agree on your face. The legend grows precisely because no one can pin you down. They call you Strings, the outlaw who plays a broken harmonica before every kill. One night, while cleaning weapons in a hideout cabin, the silence breaks. Coyote looks at you with exhausted eyes. He tells you he can't stand the taste of dust and blood anymore. He saved enough money. He wants to cross into Mexico, change his name, and open a small cantina on the coast. He describes how the sound of ocean waves will replace the sound of gunfire. He asks you what your dream is. You cut him off cold. You tell him to shut his mouth, that those words are poison, that the walls have ears. You remind him that in this life, the only retirement is a hole in the ground. He looks down, hurt. But you know what happens to runners. The next morning, a rider arrives. Coyote vanished in the night with a saddlebag full of gold coins. He's been marked as a traitor. The order is savage. Find him and kill him, or your entire team pays with slow torture. You saddle up with Anvil and Dust. Nobody speaks. You know Coyote better than anyone. He isn't heading south yet. He's going to say goodbye to his mother's grave first. You find him there, kneeling in the red dirt, hat in his hands. When he hears your horses, he doesn't run. He turns slowly. There's no surprise on his face, just a bone-deep sadness. He knows that if the outfit's own hunters catch him, they'll drag his death out for days. He knows you're his only mercy. Anvil turns his horse away. Dust grits his teeth. It falls on you. Coyote gives you a tired smile and says at least he tried to dream. He asks for one last favor. Make it quick. He pulls a crumpled sketch of the cantina that will never exist and presses it against his heart. You raise your revolver. Your hand, which has never trembled, now weighs more than an anvil. You remember the starving nights, the shared laughter, the blood oath. But the instinct to survive is stronger than love. You pull the trigger. The shot splits the silence like lightning cracking the sky. Coyote falls against his mother's cross. A piece of you dies with him on that hill. After scrubbing his blood from your hands, you lie under the stars, but sleep won't come. His last question circles your skull like a vulture. What is your dream, Captain? You ask Anvil. He says he wants to be the boss, so powerful no one can ever touch him. You ask Dust. He wants to be a legend, the most feared outlaw in history. You realize with horror that you are the only one who has nothing. An empty holster. A machine without a purpose. That night, you track down the old records from where you were taken as a child. The two men who kidnapped you are still alive in a forgotten border town. You drag them to an abandoned silver mine. One of them, sobbing, screams that you were just a scrawny kid with a busted harmonica. That phrase acts like a key turning in a rusted lock. A dam breaks, the smell of smoke, the sound of silver crumpling against stone. And before that, the melody. Your mother's melody. You remember who you were. You weren't born to hold a gun. You were born to make music. The memory drives you to your knees. You ride straight to the finest store in the nearest city. The shopkeeper goes quiet when you stack dirty gold coins on the counter. You buy the best harmonica they carry, a gleaming silver instrument. You ride to a ridge overlooking a valley so wide it seems to hold the whole world. And you play. The first note rings out pure and clear, and something cracks open inside you. You stay there for days, playing sunrise to sunset, ignoring the outfit's messages, trying to reclaim in every note the years that violence stole from you. One day, the team gets an unusual order. Not a robbery or a hit. Burn down an empty ranch house in neutral territory. Easy money, Dust keeps watch. You and Anvil set the fire and ride out clean. On the ride back, you split off. There's a traveling guitarist passing through the nearest town for a single night. For the first time, you put your passion before duty. Anvil and Dust mock you, say they'll hold your cut and ride on. You don't know that's the last time you'll see them alive. The ranch belonged to the outfit's own second-in-command. The big boss ordered the destruction, and chose your team as the fall guys. While you sit in the town square listening to music, your brothers ride into base expecting praise and are greeted by a volley of rifle fire. They die before they can draw. You survive because of a musical coincidence, but the peace is short-lived. Your instincts catch the signs. Shadows at the edges of the square. Men in long coats near the exits. They know you're here. You slip through the back of the general store and collide with a shooter in the alley. Despite his bandana, you recognize his eyes. A man you trained beside. You drive your fist into his throat, take his pistol, sprint to the livery stable, cut the fastest horse loose, and explode out of town. You are a ghost once again. The stolen horse's hooves pound the earth as you push to a full gallop. 3 riders emerge behind you, closing fast. Bullets whip past your ears. You don't feel fear, just cold focus. You know these men. You probably trained them, but today, you're giving them their final lesson. The first rider pushes up on your left, crowding you toward a ravine. Rookie mistake. You wait until he's committed, yank hard right, and fire a single shot backward. His horse rears in panic. The rider sails over the edge, disappearing into the gorge with a scream that fades into silence. 2 left. You weave through a forest of red rock pillars. The second rider tries to shoot your horse. You spot a narrow gap between 2 boulders. You feign left, then cut right at full speed. He follows, but his horse clips the stone and stumbles, throwing the rider into the rock face. 1 left, the leader, the best of them. He matches every turn, gains on every straightaway. The desert opens into a long stretch, ending at a cliff over a river. The moon hangs over the water like a silver coin. You kill your rhythm, lulling him into thinking you're slowing. He closes in for the kill shot. At the last second, you throw yourself sideways off the horse, hit the ground rolling, and come up firing. 2 shots, both hit. The rider tumbles from the saddle and skids across the desert floor. You've left a graveyard of broken men in your wake. You stand at the cliff's edge, chest heaving, the harmonica pressing against your ribs. The river glitters under moonlight. You whisper a promise. No more killing, no more running. You will be a musician, but fate has one last cruel joke. A small figure stumbles out from behind a rock. A child, maybe 6 years old, barefoot and terrified, wandering the desert alone. Lost or abandoned, just like you were. The kid freezes in the middle of the trail, staring at the gun in your hand. Behind you, the sound of more hooves. Reinforcements. Closer than you thought. Your predator brain calculates instantly. If you stop for the kid, you die. The child is not your problem. Pure logic of survival. You curse yourself. You holster your gun, scoop the kid up with 1 arm, and sprint for the cliff's edge. The riders crest the hill, rifles raised. You look down at the dark water 60 feet below. You look at the kid clinging to your neck. You look at the moon. You jump. The fall is eternal. You hit the water feet first. The river swallows you whole. Above, the riders line the cliff edge. One shoulders a stick of dynamite. The explosion tears the water apart behind you, the shockwaves slamming your chest like a giant fist. Your head cracks against a submerged rock. Freezing water floods your lungs. The kid slips from your arms, carried by the current toward shallower water, toward life. Your body sinks. There is no pain, just a deep blue silence wrapping around you. You feel the harmonica pressed against your ribs one last time. And somewhere in the darkness, you hear it. The melody, your mother's melody, pure and distant, like a voice calling you home. You chose to die as a musician rather than keep living as a killer. Finally, far from the bullets, the dust, and the memories. Silence, peace.